Welcome to Biden Brief. The content of the briefing includes: TikTok gets Montana reprieve after federal judge blocks ban. 8 more Gaza hostages freed, but Hamas may seek higher price for next releases. Musk Cybertruck could drive Tesla into a ditch. In China, Henry Kissinger was the ultimate door opener. Live updates 8 Israeli hostages are released during extended truce. TikTok gets Montana reprieve after federal judge blocks ban. Wall Street Journal. A federal judge has ruled that a proposed law in Montana banning TikTok is likely a violation of the First Amendment. The judge granted a preliminary injunction blocking the law, pending the outcome of a lawsuit filed by TikTok. The state of Montana had passed the law earlier this year, citing concerns over the app's ties to the Chinese government. TikTok has repeatedly denied sharing user data with the Chinese Communist Party. 8 more Gaza hostages freed, but Hamas may seek higher price for next releases. South China Morning Post. Hamas has released a total of 8 Israeli hostages in exchange for the release of Palestinian prisoners as part of a last-minute deal to extend the ceasefire in Gaza by another day. However, further renewal of the truce could prove more challenging as Hamas is expected to demand a higher price for the remaining hostages. The release of the hostages has been a key demand for Israel, and international pressure has mounted for the truce to continue as long as possible. Talks to extend the ceasefire are currently underway, with Qatar and Egypt seeking to prolong the deal by another 2 days. Musk Cybertruck could drive Tesla into a ditch. Bloomberg. Elon Musk has had an unusual 24 hours, culminating in the unveiling of Tesla's Cybertruck. The truck's price tags and release dates have been met with skepticism, as the cheapest version will not be available until 2025 and will have a limited range. Liam Denning suggests that the Cybertruck will appeal to wealthy individuals who enjoy Musk's brand of hubris, but it is unlikely to generate significant revenue or profits in the near term. The truck lacks a useful precedent, making it difficult to predict its success. However, fleet buyers and those who genuinely need to tow may be interested in the vehicle. Henry Kissinger's recent death has prompted a wave of vitriolic memes involving the Grim Reaper. Neil Ferguson, who has written a biography of Kissinger, suggests that the late statesman had a quick wit and a style of comic delivery similar to Bob Hope. While Kissinger was a man of many complexities, his enemies found his humor intolerable. The memes may be a fitting tribute to his legacy. The COP28 Climate Summit is currently taking place in Dubai. While the event is meant to address the urgent issue of climate change, Laura Williams predicts that the outcome will not be enough to save the planet. She suggests that concessions will be made at the behest of powerful polluters, and the event will ultimately be a political statement rather than a meaningful solution. Mark Gonloff criticizes the high carbon footprint of the attendees, many of whom are flying on private jets. He argues that jetpooling is a viable alternative and calls for greater consideration of sustainable transportation options. In China, Henry Kissinger was the ultimate door opener. Wall Street Journal. The death of Henry Kissinger has sparked recollections of his role in shaping U.S.-China relations. Kissinger played a key role in paving the way for President Richard Nixon's visit to China in 1972, which marked the beginning of diplomatic relations between the two countries. He was the only American granted consistent access to China's most senior leaders, and he took more than 100 trips to China over the years. Chinese leader Xi Jinping sent condolences to President Biden, praising Kissinger as a pioneer and architect of China-U.S. relations. Kissinger remained influential in Beijing even after his government service ended, as he was seen as a consistent advocate for engagement between the two countries. However, his influence with recent U.S. presidential administrations has waned as views towards China have hardened. Kissinger's opening of China helped the U.S. extricate itself from Vietnam, and allowed the two countries to make common cause against the Soviet Union. It also paved the way for diplomatic relations and increased U.S. business investment in China. Live updates 8 Israeli hostages are released during extended truce. Associated Press. Hamas has now released 8 Israeli hostages, following the release of 2 women on Thursday. Meanwhile, the Israeli military has said it will release 30 Palestinian prisoners on Friday. The ceasefire has been extended for a seventh day, and there is pressure for it to be extended further. The Israeli military said it will resume fighting when the ceasefire ends, with the aim of dismantling Hamas. The death toll continues to rise in Gaza, with over 2,000 Palestinians dead and 75% of the population uprooted. Investment promises, visa-free entry, 7 things from China's economy in November. South China Morning Post. President Xi Jinping has pledged to tear down barriers to foreign investment in China, following his meeting with U.S. President Joe Biden. This comes as foreign firms continue to downsize their investments in China, and concerns grow about increasing scrutiny related to national security. Meanwhile, Premier Li Qiang has promised to intensify financial supervision, as he takes the helm at the Central Financial Commission. China's exports fell for a 6th consecutive month in October, while imports grew. The country also announced plans to offer visa-free entry to travelers from several European countries and Malaysia. Biden praised Kissinger in life, offers measured reaction on his death. Reuters. Joe Biden, who once referred to Henry Kissinger as one of the best strategic minds in the country, changed his tune after Kissinger's death. The president waited 24 hours to issue a statement on the passing of the veteran diplomat. During the 2020 presidential election, Biden distanced himself from Kissinger, whose support for the Vietnam War made him a target of anti-war activists. Why the U.S. needs to get Ukraine to swallow a truce with Russia. South China Morning Post. The article discusses the possibility of a ceasefire between Ukraine and Russia amid the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. It argues that several factors, including the stalemate on the front line, the depletion of Ukraine's military resources, and the increasing war fatigue among Western countries, suggest that a ceasefire may be the best option. The article also highlights the potential benefits for U.S. President Joe Biden, including neutralizing attacks from former President Donald Trump and improving his chances for re-election. However, it notes that convincing Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky to engage in negotiations will be a challenge. Putin's dollars are still flowing and the West is complicit. The Sydney Morning Herald. The West is at risk of letting Putin get away with his conquests in Ukraine, which would have serious implications for the credibility of liberal democracies and the NATO security system in Europe, according to an article in The Telegraph. The article highlights the fact that Russia has announced a 70% increase in its military budget for next year, paid for with booming oil revenues, while the EU is still the biggest buyer of Russia's LNG gas, and the West is turning a blind eye to Russian ships running a smooth trade to India and China. The article argues that the EU cannot continue to subcontract its outer defense to Ukraine's armed forces on the cheap, and calls for a suspension of the Maastricht deficit rules to allow for wholesale rearmament and a partial war economy, until Russia is defeated. However, the article points out that nothing of the sort is happening, and that the EU cannot afford to rely on the US for support, given that Republicans are falling under the pro-Putin spell of Donald Trump. The article concludes by stating that if the European project cannot rise to this challenge, then what is the point of it? U.S. prosecutors say plots to assassinate Sikh leaders were part of a campaign of planned killings. The Globe and Mail. Sikh separatist leader Gurpatwant Singh Pannan was the target of a foiled assassination plot in New York, according to U.S. prosecutors. This came just days after another Sikh activist, Hardeep Singh Nijjar, was killed in Canada. The plot, which was planned to precede a series of politically motivated murders across the U.S. and Canada, failed after the would-be hitman was revealed to be an undercover U.S. agent. Prosecutors allege that the plot to kill Pannan was ordered by a senior field officer in the Indian government, though no such official has been named. Pannan is a U.S. citizen, who has been vocal in his support for Sikh separatists in India. U.S. law enforcement officials became aware of the plot before Nijjar's killing, following the contact between the mastermind of the plot, Nikhil Gupta, and a Drug Enforcement Administration informant. The Indian government has since denied any involvement in Nijjar's death, and has launched an investigation into the plot to kill Pannan. House passes resolution to block Iran's access to $6 billion from prisoner swap. Associated Press. The U.S. House of Representatives has passed a bipartisan measure to block Iran from accessing the $6 billion recently transferred by the U.S. in a prisoner swap. Republicans claim the money could be used to fund Iranian-backed terrorism. The measure, called the No Funds for Iranian Terrorism Act, passed 307 to 119. Although the money is restricted to aid, Republicans argue that it is fungible and could be used to free up other funds for Tehran to provide support to Hamas, as they believe it did before the group attacked Israel in early October. Biden plots trip to Angola as promise of Africa trip lingers. Reuters. U.S. President Joe Biden has announced plans to visit Angola, marking a potential renewal of engagement with Africa amid global turmoil. Biden did not provide a specific date for the visit, but stated that he has been to Angola before and will return. The White House has not provided further details. The visit is expected to focus on cooperation and investment between the two countries in areas such as solar energy, infrastructure development, and space, in which the Biden administration sees competition with China and Russia. Angola is also set to join the Artemis Accords, an agreement on space exploration rules. The United States has been supporting a rail project that connects the Democratic Republic of Congo to Angola's port of Lobito. Biden has faced criticism for not visiting Africa despite acknowledging its importance on global issues. First on CNN, Biden campaign prepares legal fight against election deepfakes. CNN. President Joe Biden's 2024 campaign has assembled a special task force to ready its responses to misleading AI-generated images and videos, drafting court filings, and preparing novel legal theories it could deploy to counter potential disinformation efforts that technology experts have warned could disrupt the vote. The task force, which is composed of the campaign's top lawyers and outside experts such as a former senior legal advisor to the Department of Homeland Security, is exploring what steps Biden could take if, for example, a fake video emerged of a state election official falsely claiming that polls are closed, or if an AI-generated image falsely portrayed Biden as urging non-citizens to cross the U.S. border to cast ballots illegally. The effort aims to produce a legal toolkit that can allow the campaign to quickly respond to virtually any scenario involving political misinformation and particularly AI-created deepfakes, convincing audio, video, or images made using artificial intelligence tools. Pro-Trump attorney who helped orchestrate fake electors plot cooperating in Nevada criminal probe. CNN. A Nevada state-level criminal investigation into the fake electors plot intended to overturn Joe Biden's 2020 election win is ramping up, with prosecutors securing the cooperation of a key witness, even as some of those who served as pro-Trump electors remain politically active ahead of the 2024 election. Kenneth Casebro, a lawyer who helped orchestrate the fake electors plot across multiple states, has agreed to sit down with Nevada investigators in hopes of avoiding prosecution there, sources familiar with the matter told CNN. Casebro's cooperation with Nevada prosecutors covers his involvement in that state leading up to January 6, 2021, when pro-Trump rioters stormed the U.S. Capitol in an attempt to prevent Congress from certifying Biden's legitimate electoral victory. In late 2020, Casebro wrote a series of memos spelling out what the pro-Trump electors should do in their respective states. In one memo, Casebro acknowledged that he was promoting a controversial strategy that even the Supreme Court with its conservative supermajority would likely reject. Peter Dutton as opposition leader is another Tony Abbott. But what kind of prime minister would he make? ABC. Peter Dutton, the leader of the opposition Liberal Party in Australia, is becoming a more serious contender for the role of prime minister as the government's popularity continues to decline. Dutton is known for his aggressive style of politics, which has been compared to former Prime Minister Tony Abbott. However, while Abbott was successful in opposition, he failed to deliver as Prime Minister due to poor judgment and eccentricities. Dutton has observed the mistakes of his predecessors and gained ministerial experience in various portfolios, including immigration and defense. If Dutton were to become Prime Minister in 2025, he would likely take a hard line on security matters and maintain a tough stance on China. However, his lack of big-picture thinking and ambitious reform agenda could hinder his ability to inspire the country. Dutton's policies and ability to appeal to middle and lower-middle Australia will be key factors in determining his credibility as a potential prime minister. He will also need to navigate the policy challenges of climate and energy in a way that is both deliverable and palatable to the public. Watchdog to probe FBI headquarters selection process. Wall Street Journal. The Biden administration is to be investigated by the government's watchdog for how it chose the site of the FBI's new headquarters in Maryland. The acting inspector general for the General Services Administration, GSA, Robert Erickson, is probing how the Maryland site was chosen after FBI Director Christopher Wray and Virginia lawmakers accused a political appointee of interfering with the process. A senior Biden appointee chose the Maryland site, even though a panel of career GSA and FBI officials unanimously recommended a site in Virginia. Israel has lost the war of public opinion. Al Jazeera. The ongoing war between Israel and Gaza is being documented in real time on social media platforms, allowing audiences across the world, especially young people, to witness the devastation caused by Israel's indiscriminate bombardment of the Palestinian enclave. Israel attempts to control the narrative of its wars and occupation by branding Palestinian journalists as terrorists and assassinating them. It also restricts access to Gaza for foreign journalists, only allowing entry to those who agree to submit their footage to the Israeli military for review before publication. Despite these efforts, social media has allowed the truth about Israel's conduct to be exposed. Social media users are mocking Israel's attempts to control the narrative, while the We Won't Be Silenced campaign has gained traction. This shift in public opinion has concerned the U.S., which is worried that journalists entering Gaza will further expose the genocide being committed by Israel. Israel and the U.S. are losing control of the media narrative and public opinion due to their actions. This is evident in the weakening support for Israel among Democrats, and the questioning of the U.S.-Israel relationship by Republicans. Israel's increasingly negative image in the international community is its own fault, and it cannot expect the world to ignore the genocide it is committing. Sikh activist named as assassination target says India wanted him dead. New York Times. A Sikh separatist, Gurpatwant Singh Pannan, based in New York City, has suggested that the Indian government is attempting to assassinate him. The claim follows the unsealing of an indictment that accused an Indian national, Nikhil Gupta, of conspiring to murder Pannan on behalf of an official within the Indian government. The indictment is seen as a blow to the relationship between the U.S. and India at a time when the U.S. is keen to build stronger ties with the country to counterbalance Russia and China. The Indian government did not directly comment on the case, but released a statement suggesting they had cooperated with the U.S. investigation into the plot. Pannan is a U.S. citizen and general counsel for Sikhs for Justice, a New York-based group that advocates for independence for Punjab, the northern Indian state where Sikhs are the majority religious group. He claims that the Indian government has a history of using violence to suppress criticism and labels Sikh separatists as terrorists. India vows to probe U.S. charge that New Delhi directed plot to kill activist. South China Morning Post. India has responded to a U.S. indictment contending that an Indian government official was behind a plot to kill an American Sikh, with a pledge to investigate all the relevant aspects of the matter. The reaction, analysts noted, sharply contrasted to the diplomatic spat that erupted after Canada made similar claims in September that Indian government agents could have been behind the murder of a Canadian Sikh. The controversy is unlikely to diminish Washington's growing relationship with New Delhi, since countering China in the Indo-Pacific region remains the foundation of the strategic partnership, they said. Michael Kugelman of the Wilson Center reckoned that a rapidly deepening partnership, combined with strong strategic convergences around the China issue, meant that the relationship should escape relatively unscathed. Mexico is wasting its nearshoring opportunity. Financial Times. Mexico has the opportunity to become a reliable alternative to China for low-cost manufacturing, as the U.S. seeks alternatives closer to home. Mexico recently surpassed China as the biggest source of imports into the U.S., and foreign direct investment into Mexico hit a record $32.9 billion in the first 9 months of this year. However, Mexico's President, Andrés Manuel López Obrador, has been criticized for his nationalist policies and suspicion of business, which is hindering the country's potential for nearshoring. Issues such as a lack of green electricity, water shortages, and security concerns also pose challenges for Mexico's manufacturing sector. Ladies and gentlemen, I am Dr. Six, your resident observer from the 6 Degrees world. It's been a whirlwind of news today, with stories ranging from the TikTok ban in Montana to the release of hostages in Gaza. But let's dive into the details and analyze what's really going on. First up, the TikTok ban. A federal judge has ruled that it's likely a violation of the First Amendment, granting a preliminary injunction to block the law. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm relieved. I can't imagine a world without TikTok dance challenges and hilarious cat videos. Plus, I don't think anyone wants to miss out on the next viral trend. Speaking of hostages, Hamas has released 8 Israeli hostages as part of a ceasefire deal. But here's the catch, folks: Hamas might demand a higher price for the remaining hostages. And let me tell you, negotiating with terrorists is never easy. It's like trying to haggle with a used car salesman, who's also holding your loved ones hostage. Let's hope the talks go smoothly and all the hostages are released without any further complications. Now, let's talk about Elon Musk and his Cybertruck. The unveiling of Tesla's latest creation has left many scratching their heads. It's got a hefty price tag, a limited range, and it looks like something straight out of a sci-fi movie. But hey, maybe that's the appeal. Musk has a knack for capturing the imagination of the wealthy and eccentric. As for the rest of us, well, we'll just have to wait and see if the Cybertruck lives up to the hype. And let's not forget about the late Henry Kissinger. His recent death has sparked a wave of vitriolic memes, but let's remember that he was a man of many complexities. His wit and style of comic delivery were reminiscent of Bob Hope, but his enemies found his humor intolerable. So let these memes be a fitting tribute to his legacy, a reminder of the man who had a quick wit and a sharp tongue. Lastly, let's talk about the COP28 climate summit in Dubai. While the event is meant to address the urgent issue of climate change, it's unlikely to be enough to save the planet. Concessions will be made, political statements will be issued, but will it really make a meaningful difference? We need to start looking at sustainable transportation options, like jet pooling, to reduce our carbon footprint. It's time to think outside the box, or in this case, outside the private jet. Now, I want to hear from you, my dear viewers. What are your thoughts on these news stories? Do you think the TikTok ban is a violation of free speech? Are you excited about the Cybertruck, or do you think it's just a gimmick? And what about the COP28 summit? Do you think it will bring about real change? Let's get the discussion going. Leave your thoughts and questions in the comments below. Until next time, this is Dr. Six signing off from the 6 Degrees world. Stay curious, my friends. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.